Today I will explain to you exactly how Roccia her kit works and the reasoning behind the rotation. So what is the highest priority of Roccia? The thing with Roccia is you want to have this special plunge attack of hers, as you can see in the image right here. So when you have the special attack available, which is only the case when you're at the top, so when you're basically mid-air, and if you cast basic attack when you're in this special state, so at this top, then you will do a cool plunging attack and you will end up at the bottom. And it is a cool AoE attack which you might have noticed when you have been playing with her. Alright? But okay then, how do we get this cool special plunge attack of Roccia then? In the first place? Well, for that, we first need to have at least 100 of this imagination. That is what this purple thing is called right here. Each full bar is equal to 100 imagination. That's what the value is called. But this is not the only thing we want to have only at least 100 imagination. We also want to be in a special state, which is called the beyond imagination state. So if you're in this beyond imagination state and we have at least 100 of this imagination, so basically just one full forte bar, then we have this cool special plunge attack available. So your forte will go from this bland purple bar to a cool purple bar with a ghost on it, which means your special plunge attack is available, and if you cast basic attack, you will do a cool AoE plunge attack. But let's clear up this beyond imagination state then. How do we get into this state? Well, you can get in this state when Roccia is basically launched up. And with launch up, I mean when she goes from the ground to the air. If you launch her up, then she will be in this beyond imagination state. But it isn't just any launch up. So for example, jumping also launches you up basically, just like the grapple, or like some echoes even also launch you up, or Carlotta's second skill. But all those things won't put you in the imagination state. So sure, they launch you up, they allow Roccia to go from the ground to the air, but it doesn't allow her to get into this beyond imagination state. So what kind of launch up allows Roccia to go into this beyond imagination state then? But there are only two ways for Roccia to get into this beyond imagination state. The first thing is her skill. When you cast Roccia's skill, it will launch her up and put her in the beyond imagination state. But it will also restore imagination for this bar to be full. So we can say restore imagination, but how do we restore imagination? Well, like we just said, Roccia's skill restores imagination. But by how much? Luckily for us, it restores it by 100. So basically one full bar. So now you can see, if we cast Roccia's skill, we launch up, we are in this state, we have at least 100 because it gives us 100 imagination. And if we cast basic attack, we do a cool plunge AoE attack. But there are also more ways for Roccia to restore imagination. Like for example, when you hold her basic attack. Since if you hold Roccia's basic attack, depending on how long you're holding that basic attack, it will also charge imagination. But it will charge imagination just until 200, depending on how long you hold it. But the nice thing is, if you were holding that basic attack until she got 100 imagination, then it would also launch her up and put her in the beyond imagination state. So like this. And of course, that attack is then a basic attack when you release it, or until it is full. So if you hold Roccia's basic attack and you hold it and you release, and when you release it, if Roccia has 100 imagination, then it will launch her up. But if you hold the basic attack and release it and she didn't have 100 at least imagination, then it wouldn't launch her up in the air and it wouldn't put her in the imagination state. So then you wouldn't be able to do the special plunge attack, since you were missing this criteria of not having 100 imagination and not being in the imagination state to begin with. Now, what other ways can we restore imagination? We already know two ways. Well, the third way is when you cast Roccia's intro skill. So when you cast Roccia's intro, it will restore 100 imagination, so one full bar. And the other way for Roccia to restore imagination is when you just do basic attacks. But how much per basic attack? Well, it's a bit difficult since Roccia's basic attack has 4 stages. So we got stage 1, and if you do a basic attack immediately after stage 1, it will put us into stage 2, to stage 3, and then after stage 4, if you basic attack, it will put you back to stage 1, because you would have completed the sequence. And regarding how much it restores, it is quite difficult to say for the first, second and third basic attacks. It is in the decimals and not nice round numbers like 10, 20 or 30 imagination. So for ease, we can say for the first basic attack it restores a little bit of imagination. For the second, it restores a bit more imagination compared to 1. And then the third basic attack restores way more imagination. But all we really need to remember is this, that if you do the basic attack sequence from 1 to 3, it will restore 100 imagination in total. That is all we really need to remember. But for the fourth one, when you cast that basic attack, then that's the most interesting one, it will restore 100 imagination. But the really special thing about Roccia's intro skill is this. When you cast the intro skill and you basic attack immediately, then it will start that basic attack from the fourth basic attack sequence. So when you intro skill with Roccia and you cast basic attack immediately, it will perform this basic attack instead of starting from the first one. So that means when you intro skill with Roccia, you will restore 100 imagination, you basic attack immediately, and you will get 100 imagination again. So we would already start with 200 imagination. So we can say basic attack immediately. And we can put it in green since it's a good thing. This is all we need to know regarding restoring imagination. So there are 4 ways, and as you might have noticed, the best ways are the skill, the intro, and the fourth basic attack, since they both restore 100 easily. And as you might have noticed, if you had played with Roccia a bit, is that her skill, of course, sucks in all the enemies. So all the enemies will be pulled in like this, super nice, and it will, of course, launch Roccia up and put her in the beyond imagination state. But there is also another very interesting about Roccia's plunging attack is this. Let's remove the dots so we know that it does a cool AoE attack. So you're in the air, you have the special plunge attack available of Roccia, you press basic attack and you go on the ground. What happens is this now. When you're on the ground after that cool basic attack is this. If you have 100 imagination after that attack, you will automatically launch up again. It will put you in the beyond imagination state again. So you fly up automatically. But of course, this special plunge attack doesn't come for free, since when you do it, you will lose 100 imagination. But if you had 0 imagination left after that plunge attack, you will just stay on the ground. Nothing will happen. So the best course of action would be then, of course, to outro to another character. Favorably your Havoc DPS, since Roccia will give some quite nice buffs when you cast her outro skill. The first buff is just Havoc damage, the other one is basic attack damage, and the other special thing is, well, it is more a plus, it will change their utility tool, so for example their grapple, to a magic box, and it will look like this. And when you press on this button, then it will do the same thing like with her skill. It will summon a tornado and suck up all the enemies. That's what this special button will do. There's also one special thing I want to tell about her, and that is her ultimate. Since Roccia's ultimate has one interesting thing with it, that is this. So you want to cast Roccia's ult. What this ultimate does is this. It will increase the attack of all allies. But we need to meet a condition though to be able to increase attack of our allies, since we want to have 70% crit rate on Roccia when we cast her ultimate. Why do we want to have that? Well, that is because for every 0.1% crit rate over 50% crit rate, Roccia will give all her teammates +1 attack, with the max being 200 attack. That is why we want to have 70% crit rate on Roccia when we cast her ultimate. So we can give the max amount of attack to the whole team. And quick mathematics for you, the easiest mathematic there is. Why 70% crit rate to begin with? That is because we know, alright, 0.1% crit rate will give us 1 attack. And we know that the max attack she will give is 200 attack. Well, how do we go from 1 attack to 200 attack? Well, that is multiplying by 200. So we want to multiply this also by 200. So what is 0.1% times 200? That is 20. So this is the reasoning why 70%. Since 50% plus 20% is 70. And like I said, you want to have 70% when you ult. So you can have, let's say, 60% on Roccia and get the other missing 10% from, let's say, Shorekeeper's ult, since Shorekeeper's ult also gives crit rate. But also Tower of Adversity gives some buffs, which can increase your crit rate. But these aren't the ways I'd recommend you to go for. I just do it like having your Roccia already built with the 70% crit rate. So you don't have to stress about that anymore when you play with her. So just make sure your Roccia has 70% crit rate, and then you know that when you cast your ultimate, you will get the max attack possible to your world team always, without being bound to tower adversity buffs or showkeeper buffs or whatever buffs there are that increase your crit rate. So now let's go through a rotation example for Roccia. The best rotation for Roccia is when you intro into her. So we start with nothing, we intro into her from another character, alright? So our first step is intro to her. When we intro into Roccia, we get 100 imagination by default. Alright, so we have 100. But we know if we basic attack immediately after this intro, then we can get another 100 imagination, since we start our basic attack sequence from 4. So we want to basic attack immediately, since if we do not take this chance, we will lose this opportunity and lose this 100 imagination. That is why that's the first thing you want to do with Roccia. Basic attack immediately after her intro. This means we got 200 imagination now. And we want to aim for the max, so 300 imagination. But we need to remember this though. We know that Roccia's ult gives the whole team a nice attack bonus. So we want to cast our ult immediately after we cast our basic attack. So 3 cast our ultimate. But we are still left with 200, since our ultimate doesn't give any imagination. So what now? We cast our ult, we get a nice attack percentage bonus, but we are still left with 200 imagination. Well, do we decide to go for holding our basic attack until 100 imagination, or do we do our basic attack sequence with 1, 2, and 3 to get 100 imagination? Or do we go for the easy route, which also puts us into the launch up state? Sure, holding basic attack also will put us in the launch up state, but it is a bit slower compared to the skill, and the skill also sucks in enemies, always welcomed. So we will go for the fourth thing we go. This is 200 by the way. We will cast our skill for the fourth thing we do. That means we got 300 imagination now, because we get 100 from here. But the skill also, like we said, launches up Roccia into the air and puts her in the beyond imagination state. So that means we are here now when we cast our skill. We are at the top. We are right here, still with 300 imagination. What do we do now? That is simple. We spam her basic attack. So for the fifth step is we press basic attack. But we know it consumes 100 imagination. So we are left with 200 imagination now. And because we have 100 or more imagination left, it will automatically launch us up in the air. And then we will be put into the beyond imagination state. And we know we have 200 imagination. So we have at least 100 imagination. So we go this route again and we're in the air. What do? For the sixth step, we press basic attack again. So we are now left with 100 imagination. And we are in the same position again. It launches us up in the air automatically. Again, the wall flow. Voila, voila. For the seventh step, again, basic attack. And we are left with 0 imagination. That means we are here now. 0 imagination. Well, luckily for us, our outro skill will be available by this time. So we outro into our DPS. But that's what you think we would do, since Roccia also has her echo available. So for the 8th step, what we want to do is first use her echo, since we're on the ground now. The 8th step, still 0 imagination, but we're already done with the wall bouncing plunge attacks. And echo skill, you can choose for is the havoc one or that energy one. I just used the energy one because it's the one I already had farmed a lot of. Just choose whatever you got the best subsets on. So 8th step, echo. And then for the 9th step, finally, we cast our outro skill. And then we are with our DPS now. And that's the wall flow. And then our DPS does our things. We switch into our support. They do their things. They get their outro. And then we intro again back to Roccia right here. And then we start our wall flow again. That's it basically. So Roccia is basically intro into her. Cast your basic attack immediately. Cast your ultimate for that attack bonus. Cast your skill so you get put up in the air. Do your 3 plunging attacks, cast your echo, switch out to your DPS, and that's it. And you can repeat that the whole thing the whole time, which is pretty simple to play with, luckily. So if there's anything I've missed or said wrongly, let me know. I thank you for your time and see you the next time. Bye.